Hello, family. Welcome back. I wanted to share some things real quick that I found when making some more lessons for Creation Standard and investigating things that I had looked into years ago, but now being, of course, more thorough. And I'm finding things that are blowing my mind because it has to do with popular missions that we've looked into, especially those of someone like Auguste Piccard, who went way up in the air. He was one of the first people to do that. And I think what really excited a lot of people was his description of the world at the heights he went, because he went higher than most planes go, 51,775 feet with his first flight, and he was in the air for quite some time. And his description of the world that was in the popular science magazine that everyone's talking about, of course, where he says that it seemed flat at that height or like a flat disc with upturned edge, that was something that had people really excited back when information wasn't as censored as it is today. But his descriptions of the world are not what I'm interested in. There's more to the story, of course. What I was looking into at first was where he landed, because he was up above the world for 16 hours, almost an entire globe rotation. And so, if the world is moving to the right or eastward, which is why they say we have sunrises and sunsets, that sun goes this direction. It would make sense if the world was moving that way. But the balloon, similar to if you were to fire a bullet and the world rotates beneath it, what should happen to the balloon eventually is that the world should rotate beneath it just like a pendulum or a bullet. And within 16 hours, his trip had him going this direction, south, and a little bit east. So that's where he landed, somewhere in a place called Obergurgel. And so that's where he landed. And he only traveled 103.8 miles on his first flight. And then he went and did another flight where he went a little bit higher, 53,000 feet this time. And his trip only lasted 12 hours, so half of a globe rotation. This time it was more southeastward. It appears he's just going in the direction the wind is blowing. And so that was Auguste Piccard. Most of you know about him, and many of you even know about his son, Jacques Piccard, who had a world record, just like his dad, but this time it's for going downward. He went really far down near the bottom of the Marianas Trench, deepest place allegedly in the ocean that you can dive to, and he has allegedly went there. And so really cool that his dad was one of the first people to allegedly reach the stratosphere. I say the word allegedly a lot because I know we're all skeptical of the things put out there, and I don't want to say something false because who knows? I'm sure there's way more to our false history than we're being taught, especially when it comes to things flying up above us. And so this guy was the son of Auguste Piccard, and that's not where the story ends. Mr. Auguste Piccard has a grandson, the son of Jacques Piccard, who also has a world record. And I don't know why. I never investigated this, heard about this, or anything, but his record is really impressive. He got in a massive balloon. His name is Bertrand Piccard. You can look this up, and he went around the world. And similar to looking at the flight paths of his grandfather, I thought if they were above the world long enough to navigate it, first of all, how long were they up there? Second of all, which direction did they go? And so the flight time, they have all that information. It was almost 20 days, 19 days, 21 hours, and 47 minutes. And their balloon was impressive. I'm going to show you a little image of it here in a second. But that flight, trying to track its path was really hard to do until I came across a website. And this website shows you a map of the world looking down. Almost looks like the biblical Earth map, but they cut it off right here, similar to looking down at the top of the globe. Circumnavigation works the same either way. But this website in particular, I will share this in the description so you can check this out yourself. When you scroll down day by day, their trip starts becoming visible as a green line. And so I'm going to scroll down day by day, let you see that line, watch it as it grows. There it is right there. Keep your eye on that line. Day 2, day 3, they're in their little bunks. Day 4, day 5, look at them fixing this thing. They were way up there doing these little repairs. Guys were quite brave. I'll show you a little clip of that in just a second. There's the grandson right there, Mr. Bertrand Piccard. There he is again. Looks a lot like his grandpa. Continuing on. Look at this flight. There it's going eastward. There's their little capsule. You can see a little animation of it. They had a place for one of them to sleep at a time, and then one of them would stay up at the laptop. This was back in 1999. I don't think I said that. So back in the 90s, the good old days before Y2K. Some of you guys are old enough to remember that madness. So Mr. Bertrand Piccard here, manning the laptop. I think that's who that is. I can't really tell in this animation, but the capsule they had was impressive. It was propane powered, so they could heat it up like a hot air balloon, but it also had helium. So it was a multi-purpose balloon. Quite genius the way they designed it. And to lose weight as they used up their tanks, they would drop them in the middle of these deserts, and still scares me. I thought about these heavy tanks falling down and hitting somebody. Could you imagine the damage? But they were doing that, and their journey taking them eastward. I'm going to keep scrolling now that you've seen their little capsule. Wanted you to check that out. They're going around the world, going east, continuing all the way around day by day, getting to 18, 19. Then the wind seemed to really pick up. Day 20, which wasn't even quite 20 days, I didn't think. 21, maybe it was more than 20 days. Maybe I'm getting my information wrong because that says day 21. And then there they are. They landed right there in Egypt, 1999, March 21st. Really, really cool. Landing in that Egyptian desert. First ever nonstop balloon flight around the world. But what's unique about this is the direction of their flight. Remember, I said the world would be moving this direction? It would have rotated nearly 20 times during their journey. They went the same direction as the spin. This makes no sense because science tells us that if you put a pendulum in motion, the world will rotate beneath it. If you shoot a bullet, the world rotates beneath that. But not balloons. What is the difference? If you tied a balloon to a pendulum cord, then it works? I mean, what's going on here? These guys are going the wrong direction if that world is spinning 20 times beneath them. And that's just the spin. Remember, that's the slowest motion that they tell us our world is going. Its fastest motion's far greater. Remember, almost 500,000 miles around the galaxy. If you were to multiply these numbers, 490,000 miles per hour times the amount of hours within the days for this journey, millions of miles that world would have moved, not just around the galaxy, but also around the sun. It's safe to say these balloons are going up above an immovable world. And those are just a few of the balloon flight paths I've looked at. I started going back, looking at certain operations as well. Back in the good old days, 1957, Project Manhigh. This was another one, 101,000 feet. And he was up there for guess how many hours? 33 hours. And this flight, being up there for an entire globe rotation, guess what the flight path was? Because that's impressive heights, by the way. I mean, we send balloons up there today like that, but this had a man in a gondola. Look at that crammed in there. That was when they started wrapping them with foil. I don't know why they thought that would be a safe, good idea, but they eventually wrapped them up real good with foil. You can see it up here at the top, the bottom half. They had like a little sleeve that went over top of this thing and two little window holes. And I thought, man, I'd be disappointed going up that high and having these two little tiny window holes to look out of. Didn't even have one in front of him. I mean, it looks like he's strapped to the seat pretty tightly. I'd be sad about that. So up there at those heights for 33 hours, here's his flight path. Check this out. He did go west this time, a little southwest, but he went west. He didn't go far though, about 22.142 miles, if I'm measuring that correctly. But he went all sorts of different directions: east, south, northwest, south, back up, down, everywhere. He was going all around wherever the wind took him. This is not a path relative to a globe rotating for an entire rotation and then some. It was like 1.37 rotations, if I'm doing the math correctly and remembering this correctly. I go into greater detail with our classes, but for the sake of time, because I don't have a lot of time with the work I still have to do, it's a lot of work. It's a blessing, though, doing this work and sharing these things with a generation of children who are just blessed with truth-seeking parents. Also sharing this with older students as well as adults. So that's a blessing as well. Solidifying the proof of our Father's creation and looking into these things and remembering just how much the world made these things out to be a big deal, having no clue that they really were, but not because of the fisheye lenses making the world look curved and all that, but because of what they entail. So Felix Baumgartner, another one of those. I remember seeing people go, how did he land near the same location he took off from if the world was moving? And they say, well, he moved a little bit because of the world moving beneath him, and it just wasn't that great of an amount because of the small amount of rotation that happened in that 1 hour and 40 minutes. So even the debunk websites coming to the rescue saying that it just wasn't long enough in the air, even though he went 127,852 feet and traveled a distance of 42.65 miles across the surface of the world. But what gets weird is he also went to the east. I had the hardest time finding his coordinates. He did not go the direction of a rotating globe Earth. He also went east, just like many others before him. And not only that, there was another man after him who broke his record that hardly anyone has heard of, including me, until I looked it up to see if his record was broken. And sure enough, a man named Alan Eustace broke his record not long after, 2014, in October, right before he retired. He was, of course, a Google former senior vice president of engineering. He went to an altitude of 135,890 feet, or 25.74 miles in the air. That is 8,038 feet higher than Felix. And his flight path, I could not find where he landed. You can see where he took off from on a map. And it was right here at Roswell. A lot of these are in Roswell, New Mexico. Imagine that. That's kind of odd. It's where a lot of these balloon flights take off from. But that's where they took off from. And when I watched him land, there was this circular pattern in the soil here. And I thought, that's odd. You don't see that very often. But when you look at the map from where he took off, those little circular areas are everywhere near where he took off. And when you zoom out, they're predominantly located nearby. So I'm assuming he landed pretty close to where he took off, because you don't see these things everywhere. They seem to be just in that central location. And so I would guess he landed somewhere close to where he took off. I don't know which direction, east or west, but that was something I wanted to share with you guys, as well as why NASA is sending so many balloons up, or what they say, because in the early days of our research, I know you guys were probably like me, you had a hard time finding out about the Satelloons. And it was like finding, documents online and doing research, and it was on websites. Now they're coming out and talking about these things. And so I started looking into just how high they're going, and found out that they're going and maxing out at around 160,000 feet, or 30 miles. And the world record highest balloon that's unmanned was 33, there's that number again, 33.333333 miles. Wow. Can't get enough threes in there. That seems to be where we peak. And that more dense air that our Father designed to support life is just stacked up that high. We need a lot of it to survive, and our Creator designed it to do what it does for a reason. Imagine if He made the air we breathe as dense as helium, it would just float up and we would die. He knew His creation needed a certain amount of air. He supplied us with that air. We have air pressure. If He had too much, we'd have too much air pressure. So He made enough to where it layers out based on density. And so those lighter gases that float all the way up, they have their limits too. And so everything stacks perfectly, kind of like a rainbow. Really, really cool how that works. And it's an intelligent design component that we take for granted, because we're just used to breathing air all the time, and we don't think about what would happen if our Creator didn't know how to make air with the proper density, especially the kind that we need to breathe. So that is just some snapshots of these balloon flights. But now I want to show you the sinister side of NASA's balloon operations. This video was recommended right before I published our lesson, and I thought, man, I've got to share this with you guys because you'll find this interesting. And this is how I actually found out about Auguste Piccard's grandson, Bertrand Piccard. And it was in this video where these NASA people are talking about balloon missions like, oh yeah, now it's just common knowledge, when in reality, they weren't talking about this before. Now we're on to them, and they're putting it out there like it's just everyday common knowledge, talking about their Satelloon program. So let's check this out, and then we'll talk about it.
Today, we're going to be talking about something a little different that some people might not associate with NASA.
That's right. We're talking about balloons. Balloons that float very, very high up there in the atmosphere.
Balloon science really helps us understand not just our world better, but actually the whole universe.
That's exactly right. The essential idea of a balloon is to move an experiment over the atmosphere. Per square inch, there's something like 15 pounds of atmospheric weights on top of us.
Sometimes we have to make our spacecraft really small if we're trying to get them all the way up into orbit. But going up in a balloon, we can actually take a fair amount of weight. That's important because the more mass you have, that means the more instruments, the more science you can do.
Exactly right. So we can bring up to 8,000 pounds.
How big are these balloons and how long do they actually stay up?
We have a variety of balloons. The biggest ones are so big they fill a whole football stadium. Some of them last for hours and days, and the longest ones, the super pressure balloons, last for up to 100 days.
And one of the things I think it's important for people to understand is they actually rely on balloons every day in a way that they might not know about. Weather balloons launched every day help us to understand and predict tomorrow's weather.
NASA launches about 15 balloons a year from a variety of locations. All
Look at that. Launching balloons from Antarctica, New Zealand, Australia, way up north. So yeah, basically way up north, way down south. Pacific Missile Range Facility in Hawaii. They're launching balloons from there. Lots of different places. Palestine, Texas, launching these balloons continuously. And now they're putting this footage out there, footage that we had to really search hard to find years ago.
All the way from New Zealand to Texas.
We actually have 3 different NASA instruments that flew on balloons in our downtown museum. All of them were looking at radiation left over from the Big Bang to help us understand the Big Bang better.
These measurements have really transformed our understanding.
Now, it's hard for people to understand how we can be studying the Big Bang from our atmosphere, something that happened
billions and billions and billions of years ago.
Billions, billions, trillions, trillion, million, 400 billion suns. Billion, trillion, million, billion, trillions of orbiting snowballs.
But all those particles are coming from a huge distance. It takes them a long time to travel to us. So it's really almost an echo of the Big Bang that just took a long time to reach the Earth. And that helps us to actually understand that event that we don't understand very well yet.
So that helps them understand an event that they don't understand very well yet. This event that was invented by a Jesuit priest in the early 1900s, I can't remember the exact date, but they invented this fairy tale. And now they're studying this fairy tale with balloons that we pay for. And they're saying that these waves have traveled billions of miles to get to us, which they make it sound like we already existed when this explosion happened, and now those waves are just now getting here. That's not how their Big Bang explosion worked. We're all moving in the exact same direction. That's how explosions work. And now they're saying we're just now getting some of these radiation waves here, and we're detecting them, their cosmic microwave backgrounds, with balloons. That's a really good cover story for their Satelloon program, studying the Big Bang. And even the animations you saw in the video of the galaxies moving and the Big Bang type of stuff, those are animators we're paying to paint pictures of their lies. And it's powerful lies. People are falling for this. I've seen this exact same map in classrooms of teachers that I worked with. They believe this stuff is true. All you got to do is just paint some modern art and say, look, proof of the Big Bang. And people are buying it. And so it's depressing to see this false science pushed out there like that. But it's a blessing to see the truth breaking through these lies and people like you guys helping us share this stuff. It is life-changing. And watching the joy of our precious children that the Father is sending this direction, coming to these truths, putting it to the test, and seeing how excited they are about the Word and finding truth, it is a major, major blessing. And so I thank you guys for all of you who have been patient with us as we've been doing that. We're already in week 10. It's been a major blessing, and I can't say that enough. It is a lot of work. It's more work than I've ever done in my life. I know my wife misses me quite often, but there's a lot of work to be done still, and I hope to continue stopping and sharing like this when I have a brief moment to pass along some snapshots of the information we're coming across. This stuff is powerful, and it really does feel great and rewarding to watch the lies of false science fall apart So thank you guys again, those of you who have sent us support for Creation Standards so we can keep that going. My ultimate goal is to continue doing this. And I know that, of course, my wife doing all the finances and everything, it can be stressful. And it seems like as soon as we're at a point where we're like, well, I might need to start applying for other jobs, somebody sends us support and it just comes at the right time. So thank you guys that are supporting and being spirit led and doing that. I know it's something that's hard to do in these crazy, uncertain times, but I wanted to hopefully brighten your days with some of the things we are seeing. There's, of course, way more, just scraping the surface here with this due to time, but I thought you guys would find that fascinating, especially with all of the flight path information, especially with this mission here. If they would have gone the right direction, they would have went this way, but nope, they went in the eastward direction. So I would love to reach out to these people, Mr. Piccard Jr. over here, Bertrand, if that's how you say it, or Bertrand Piccard. There it is. So Bertrand Piccard, if I can get a hold of that guy, I'd love to talk to him. Some of the things he was doing up there were phenomenal. Like, I want to show you this real quick. I forgot about this. These guys in their balloon scraping off ice. At these heights, this just makes me, I'm not even afraid of heights, but this makes me a little nervous watching them knock off these icicles here. And they're doing other things and, of course, repairing things as they go, stepping out on the ledge here, scraping off these things, watching these tanks fall down to the ground. It is impressive. I want to see if I can skip to that. There they are. That would be terrifying. Look at the distance they are. They are way up there. Can't believe he's not wearing an oxygen mask. I'm guessing they're at a safe altitude here. Scraping off the ice. Looks like they're at the height of most airplanes. That is extremely high. Sunlight melting the ice. See if I can find the footage of them cutting off those tanks. That was impressive in itself. Here they go. Cutting off those giant tanks. I feel like I would accidentally cut the wrong cord. Oh my goodness. Hopefully nobody's down there. Boom. Wow. You'd think they would have like attached little parachutes to these things, but I bet that thing is still there. Like, do you really think they hired somebody to go around the world picking up tanks? I doubt that. But really cool stuff. That's their little gondola. I would love to do something like that in there with a space big enough to walk around, lay down, do some work for 20 days. What a journey. I would love to go up there with a P1000 doing some long distance photography and other experiments. Definitely not having to worry about curvature or the gondola turning upside down, like it would need to do. If that were a global operation, you would have to go upside down at some point. 360-degree rotation to circle the globe. I don't think they ever tipped the top of this thing in any direction. Stayed straight up and down the whole time. You can watch the footage of it. So really cool stuff. Again, I love sharing these things with you guys. I felt led to do so. So I hope this helps hopefully push some of you over the fence when it comes to the truth of biblical earth so that you can start sharing that powerful truth. It's something that's not the most important truth, but things that eliminate the Creator, those lies that are of the spirit of the Antichrist that are set in place to deny the Father and the Son. It's important that they hide Genesis chapter 1. And the best way to do that is to make it seem like a fairy tale by creating your own lie that doesn't match it. And we know that Genesis 1 is true. And day 2 of creation was not just a day making air. He was making one structure, and it was the firmament. And so I want you guys to share a lot of this stuff as much as you can while we can. I know the deceptions are ramping up. I'm starting to see alien nonsense again in the news. And so you guys are awesome. We love you. The Father loves you. And we will see you next time.